Okay, so I'm with Dennis Frey from Manatee Apparel, and this is Charlie's Corner. Hi there. In any event, we're a bit early, but hopefully there'll be some others joining us shortly. We'll
Okay.
see. If not, then you and I get to chat for an hour or however long we want, which is not a bad thing either. Um, when I spoke to the people at Vastex, they are way down from where they usually were. And to me, that's just an indicator that uh, a lot of people coming into the garment industry right now are coming in under DTF and not under screen print.
I
Um,
would agree with that. Better way to get your feet wet, isn't it?
it is. I think the biggest
What's
problem
expensive?
with people coming in on DTF, they're not even buying the equipment; they're just jobbing it. And so, to me, um, what do I think about that? It's not something that I'm in love with.
I agree.
If they bought their own equipment, then there's a commitment. Right now, they're just brokers, and quite honestly, who needs them? They're just nothing more than a nuisance, in the sense that they're going to compete with you and everybody else who's in the industry, who's made a financial commitment, who's doing this for their livelihood, and they're really not. They can just kind of do it on the side and coast along, and whatever they make, they're happy with. And will they create problems on the financial side? They will, because they can undercut you, because they don't have anything. They don't have a brick and mortar situation that they
No
have to
overhead.
deal with. And so their overhead is, sitting at home and hitting a computer and just sending off some work. Um,
Yeah. Maybe investing in a heat press, but it doesn't go much beyond that anymore.
well, yeah, and a matter of fact, I had an old client that I probably haven't dealt with in 25 years or more, who just retired. And he's coming out to the Long Beach show specifically to buy a transfer machine. And it's like,
Really?
really, why don't you just stay home and order one? Um, and he's the type of guy who'll sit on the side. He's retired. He'll uh, move along and screw around with, the whole idea of just brokering everything. And in the end, to me, he's the guy who makes your life miserable, in the sense that, whatever you quote, he can do better because he doesn't have any overhead and any obligations. And to me, that sucks, to be honest with you. Um, Even when he mentioned it to me, he said, "Hey, can I come in and say hi?" Yeah, come in and say hi, but don't expect any help from me about anything, because quite honestly, I just assume you not show up. So
Right.
I don't know. But
Now, I've heard
even like I said,
down
even
here.
with huh?
I heard the year down here, at least, first couple of weeks for distribution's been very, very positive, very active,
Okay,
and we're seeing a lot of activity also. I was at the ASI show last week.
right.
There were 300 people at the convention center in Orlando. There were 300 people in line when the doors opened on the first day, and it was full by noon.
That's great. ASI and PPAI um, cater to a slightly different audience, definitely more corporate in general. I did the ASI show at PPIA, which is on now, I guess, or
There's
about to
one in.
begin. Yeah. And have you ever done that show in Vegas?
No, I need to. I need to learn more about PPAI. So they're the ones you say are more corporate.
Well, so I did the ASI show. I used to do a show in Germany called PSI, which was basically the same as ASI and PPIA. And the two CEOs from those companies would come out to the show in Germany, and I would go out to dinner with them and the CEO of the PSI show. And ended up getting invited to speak at both of those shows. And ASI was very nice. PPIA was huge in comparison, far, far larger, a more diversified crowd. You know, ASI, because it was in Orlando, um, definitely caught a lot more of the East Coast audience, where PPIA, I think, catches everybody. You know, like the booth from the garment companies, like at that time, Alpha Broda, um, Sanmar, et cetera. I always thought that the January show had the big booth, not until you went to PPIA. That's when you
Really?
saw their big booths. I mean, these things were just monstrous in size. And it was one garment company after another, after another, after another. You know, they kind of stacked them, and it was huge. Um, it actually made the Long Beach show, as far as garments go, a secondary show, not a primary show. So that was kind of interesting to me. But you know, if you've never done that show, it's definitely worthwhile going to it. Um, Lots to cover. Your legs are definitely going to hurt at the end of the day.
I need to do Long Beach and I need to do a PPAI out in Vegas, to see
Yeah,
what the big difference.
you
That
know,
was a prep.
it
That was a
used to
push.
be you could do PPIA and then from there jump over to Long Beach.
When is
And,
Long Beach? Oh, isn't it next week?
and yeah, I'm flying out on Tuesday. So the show itself is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but workshop starts the day before the show. And
Gotcha.
it used to be where I can never remember if it's AI or IA, but whatever it is, used to be the same week of that show. So people would fly in on Saturday or Sunday morning, go to PPIA on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday, and then hop over to Long Beach.
That's a
And
lot of walk a week.
it is, but you know, as long as like someone like you're in a, you know, on the East Coast and you're going to fly to the West Coast, it'd be just
Right.
easier to stay there and hop over rather than flying back and forth.
Then just come back from Vegas.
Oh, did you?
No, no, no. I'm saying that, and
Oh,
then just make a round trip, go out
oh
and
yeah,
go to
just
like a,
yeah. I mean, it's such an easy hop over. Hey Ben, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm hanging in there. So Dennis has a company down in Florida in Bradenton called
how are
Manatee Apparel,
Okay.
and Ben Ben is the semi-retired part of Lawson Screen Printing Supplies,
you? Lawson?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
and
Very
so
familiar with.
he pops in every now and then to see what's going on and to get a feel. Hey, we were talking about the climate of the industry. I don't know how much you're putting into chatting with David or anybody else at Lawson, but how is screen printing doing compared to, let's say, DTF? Any
Pretty
thoughts?
minor. It seems, from my perspective, which isn't necessarily the company's perspective, but I do know I do stay involved with Lawson pretty much on a weekly basis, actually.
Okay,
Between my brother and my son, who more or less took over my place at Lawson. Um, it seems like screen printing is either you're really small or you're really big. And that middle position, they used to be pretty decent up until direct to film came around,
yeah,
is kind of not doing too much. That's from my perspective, not Lawson's perspective.
okay,
You know, I know Lawson's numbers and I know about other people in the industry, competitors kind of. I don't keep up on a daily like my brother does and my son does. I keep up with it weekly or monthly.
okay. Well, I was mentioning, you know, I did a lot with Vastex, and they are way down,
Hmm.
and they're strictly manual, which is really geared to the small shop to begin with,
Correct.
and they're not seeing a whole lot of activity there. They're selling a lot of their shakers for the DTF field,
Hmm.
but on the equipment side, not much.
Yeah, same with Lawson in the fact that they're selling a lot of uh, DTF. They made their own dryer, shaker, and all that.
Right.
It's a few people who said, well, we want an American product, not one coming from wherever.
China in general.
And basically, it was, I forgot how much more. Let's call it $5,000 more for the
Right.
machine. They don't want to pay for it. They say they want it, made in
Yeah, but
America. We made it in St. Louis. And
right.
with the automatic, we bought all the fancy automatic rewind systems. They have the machine, and just people don't want to spend the money. They say they want to buy American, but they don't.
Yeah, well, they want to buy American if it's the right price.
Correct. And they just can't do it. My brother says, it's a great product, works fantastic. They put it out in the shop. Somebody field tested it for months, and they just don't want to spend the extra money.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
they try to push it tremendously. They decided why fight the current,
Uh,
and
yeah,
they, yeah,
but that's an old story, unfortunately. Everybody wants it, but they want it American and they want it cheap. And it's like, how do you do that? And when you look at most of the DTF machines, they're all coming out of China.
yes,
Okay. I think there are only three manufacturers that are not Chinese. Um, I think Mamaki is one of them, uh, Muta, and I'm not even sure if there's a third.
yeah, Epson's, but I'm not sure if Epson's really making them in Japan or not.
Okay. So they're
Epson
making
makes
them in
them,
Japan instead of China. Okay.
yeah,
To
So,
me, Epson printers aren't what they were.
yeah. Well,
and the
yeah. And
Epson machines we sell, Lawson sells Epson also.
right.
They're not selling like the Chinese machines. They are selling. They're selling a bunch of them. I mean,
Okay.
weekly, they're selling a system. If not, it's at least once a week they're selling a system or two.
Well, as far as, the Chinese machines go, I mean, there are some that are without a doubt better than others,
Correct.
um, with companies that have been around for a long time. Um, and then, of course, there are the fly-by-nights who are trying to push in, fairly inexpensive machines. And, how good are they? And the answer is who knows? You'll find out after you buy it if it's worthwhile and if you actually have somebody on the customer service side that speaks English and sends you, you know, a manual that actually is readable. Of course, we've had that issue in the U.S. as well. I mean,
People don't read manuals. I used to write the manuals for Lawson. One
yeah,
time, the person putting it together put 2 pages in from a UV dryer into an automatic press, and nobody checked it. The only one who checked it was, as it's a woman who bought a
yeah,
machine. Said, "Why are these 2 pages in there?" It's like a 64-page manual I did. And when they was putting it all together, he grabbed two wrong pages.
that's funny.
That's
It's
after
funny.
3 years.
Back when I first got in the industry, precision screen machines used to represent CIOS.
No,
It didn't matter what CIOS flatbed press you bought, you got the same manual, and it never matched the machine.
yeah. No,
And
it was an enjoyable. I spent 20% of my time writing manuals,
Mm.
well,
which was, that's a lot of time.
it
But
is,
I to
and
the point
if
where I made it so that it was really a service indirectly. It became a service manual for our service techs that they could find every little nut and bolt when somebody said they broke something or needed something.
yeah,
And this is before the computers were, so highly organized, I'll call it.
right. It's funny. I think most men never read a manual. It's like I could do this without reading it. And then
Not
they
until
get
you,
screwed up and then they can't, then they have to start digging through the manual to try and figure out where the hell they are. I think women are a lot more organized when it comes to that type of thing. They actually do read it before they do something. Me, I was terrible at that. I have to admit that, reading a manual was like really killed me
Asking for
first.
directions.
Yeah,
Well, the big thing on even on automatics, we could go set up an automatic, and the word is really you try to get the level of the head, get it parallel to the pallet.
right.
So somebody would read in an article, everything has to be leveled with a level, bubble level, and they would screw the whole thing up.
Yeah,
And they say all of a sudden everything was printing fine, and my guy over the weekend put a level and noticed everything wasn't leveled, so he bubble leveled everything, and now everything doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
say in register because it's all screwed up the pallets.
yeah.
That
Right.
happened once a year, at
Oh,
least.
well, yeah. Uh,
Well, it doesn't surprise me though that the manuals may be down. I'm wondering how the bigger guys are doing, the manufacturers. I talked to Danny from Screen Process and Larry from Chromaline, and both said the manufacturers they're talking to, the guys making the equipment, are geared up for a good 2026. I hope that's true.
so do I.
I'll tell you, the activity for the first couple of weeks of the year has been very good. A lot of new customers.
You know, although you only have two automatics, you're a really busy shop. And, it's too bad you don't have an extra 20,000 square feet because you could probably use it, but that's besides the point. Um, but, you crank out a lot more than most shops do that I've been to. Um, and even the equipment that you just purchased, the SATA unit, and even I guess what was it, the Maki or
Yeah,
um,
the UDG, yeah,
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 you kind of fall into the larger category, even though you don't have as much equipment as a large shop generally would have.
yeah,
And on that end, I think the bigger shops are always moving along a lot more so, even though you do DTF, et cetera. Um, I don't see a big shop having as much of an issue in terms of business because even on DTF, you're not going to do 1,000 shirt order with
right,
DTF. I mean, you
right.
have to be out of your mind. And even with those new carousels that they're doing that are automatically putting the uh,
Yeah,
unit, the transfer in place and pressing it, et cetera, and peeling it. The only thing you're doing is laying a shirt on and pulling the shirt off. Um, and yes, they can quote unquote run at 350 an hour. You know what? An automatic can run over 1,000 an hour. How many people get up to that number? Nobody. Okay. And so even with DTF, if they can run at 350 an hour, that means if you're getting 200 an hour, you're probably about where it would come into because you still have to stack the transfers in place. You still have to uh, add more into it. If
right.
anything should have happen to slip, you have to stop. And every time you stop, that number keeps going down further and further and further. And so, I always love not to knock manufacturers, but even when I had my screen print shop, we had our automatic. We ran them 24 hours a day. We did run at 900 an hour speed, and to be honest with you, during an 8 hour shift, we would produce 5 to 5,500 shirts on a machine. But that's back in the day before the flash and before there was double strokes. And so on a precision press, we just cranked it and it never stopped. And so, yeah, when we did our calculations, I mean, we came out with a horrendous number, in terms of what three machines could produce in a 24-hour span. In today's world, if you could get anywhere near a quarter of what we could do, you would be great between flashing and double stroking and running a slow speed for your white, etc.
Yeah,
Uh, the best that I knew of, I worked with a company in Istanbul called ETF, and they would be, and they did nothing but contract work. They're the only company I know that printed Nike and Adidas under the same roof at the same time. And the reason they did is they were that good. And so when I spoke to Samir, who was running the shop at the time, I said, what do you get out in the production? And he had eight automatics. He said, what we do is we sample everything. They had an automatic just for sampling. Okay, it was 11 color, 12 stations. So it was one open station, and they had their flash on rollers, so they could pull it into flash when they needed to without taking up a head. And so um, they would put together the entire job in terms of all the settings that they needed and do the print sample. And so if the operator matched the sample when he set up the machine, he didn't have to wait for approval, which is one of the things when I was working down in Central America, they would have to wait for a sign off on everything. In his shop, if they matched the sample, they could go ahead and run. In an 8-hour shift with his 8 automatics, when they weren't busy, they didn't push hard, and they would average out at 450 an hour. Okay. When they were busy, that number went to 550 an hour. Now, I don't know anyone else who even comes close to that. And this was day in and day out. And the only reason they couldn't do more shirts is because they manufactured the shirts, and that gave them all the shirts that they could produce in a day. So, and of course, if you're not dealing with that type of situation, you can't really sample and document in advance because, you're going to have to do it on press and then run the job.
We've done several now, Charlie, where we DTF that sample.
Okay.
And as long as we don't see a giant difference between the two, off we go.
You can run it.
We've got a job right now on the Cobra for 5,200 pieces, and I'll bet we finished about 1,700 yesterday. We didn't start till late, but we should finish the 3,500 today and then flip them over to get the backs.
I have to admit, when I went to your shop, I have not seen that many hoodies in my life in one place. I mean, that was insane. And I think it's wonderful. But
I'll share it with you. We out of those two presses, we got just over 3 million last year in revenue, not including the rest of the business, just screen printing.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's really a huge number.
This might sound like a stupid question. As a screen printer doing textiles, do you ever get asked about printing graphics as far as like political signs, real estate signs, any other type of POP work from any of your customers?
I mean, we do some signs here.
Well, you have digital equipment for that.
You would digitally print.
Or we would, like if it's a yard sign or something, we can make banners up to, we've got the VG 540, the Roland VG 540.
Okay.
So yard signs, we'll do it that way, but I just bought a UV printer, a Mamaki, and that'll do yard signs also. You're one at a time, but it'll do yard signs. When it gets to a certain quantity, we go to ASI. If someone needs 10 where the margin is, but to make them right now in our facility for a couple bucks a piece, to me, it's not worth it. I'd rather resell them.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Just curious about that.
We
Charlie, did you ever have a belt printer?
Say that again, please.
I was asked Charlie, did you ever have a belt printer when you were in production?
No.
I knew you had Precision. Precision was,
Yeah, I had
belt printers.
I had a 5-color, 6-color, a 6 jumbo, and an 8-color.
Okay.
Okay. And back when I was printing, we were doing rock and roll. And so we really had no use for a belt printer.
I'm just curious.
Because even when we were doing contract work, we did a lot of children's sleepwear. tens of thousands of dozens, to be honest with you. And all they wanted was a fairly small print because it was for children's wear, and it had to also pass flame tests. And so, not that that mattered, but we were able to do all that on the automatics without having any issues. And so there was no real reason for us to look at a belt printer because
Yeah.
we couldn't do enough of that type of work to justify the cost of it.
Gotcha. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah,
It's
no, you
interesting that
know,
they had the retardant in the ink back then when you were printing. I mean, I know later because we owned an ink we still do, or Lawson does, ink manufacturer, which we did do a lot of children's wear back in the day.
yeah. I
But
mean,
the,
we used to send, we'd have to send out and have them do the flame test on it. And what was
Mhm.
always interesting to me, we would get a call back saying you failed. And it's like, plastisol doesn't burn. I said, do me a favor, redo the test without any ink on it. That failed. With the ink, we definitely got better results. And we
Right.
didn't even go with flame retardant ink. We did at one time, and it was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Uh, but plastisol ink just doesn't burn. Uh,
Correct.
and so, it would actually put out, because originally the manufacturer wanted us to use Tex dyes, which is an oil and water system.
Oh,
And
gee.
because the fabric they were using was so flammable, quote unquote, that it would burn through that. When we went over to plastisol, that would all pass. And
Interesting.
it was weird because what we would do is we would get the front of garments and print them, and they would get flown to Haiti, where the sleeves and backs were all floated to Haiti in advance. And in Haiti is when they would assemble everything and then ship it back to the US.
Interesting. And
Well,
this is
that
in
was
the mid early
1970,
70s,
that was late 70s,
the
yes.
late 70s. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, when they talk about dropping off a a shipment, today you talk about 1,000 shirts, 5,000 shirts, 10,000 shirts. We were talking about 5,000 dozen shirts or 5,000 dozen pieces being dropped off.
Yeah.
And so, we would stick it on press. I mean, we could run for several days on the same job.
That's good money.
Well, you
Well,
know,
good work.
garment industry, it's amazing what we charged back then and what the garment industry in New York now pays is almost identical. And
Hmm.
here it is 50 years later. Garment industry in New York is one of the worst things that anybody could get involved with. They just don't pay.
Yeah.
They'll kill you over 2 cents. But oh well. Dennis, your main business is what I shouldn't say main business. You do a lot for
Say
For
that one more time.
bloggers.
we have a few, not too many, but our largest one is a very substantial YouTube guy.
So
And
I guess my question is, did they find you or did you go out and pursue them?
no, they found us. This was it was a referral.
Huh.
We haven't advertised since before 2020, since
Okay.
before COVID.
I was just
And even
curious.
I just heard yesterday in our showroom, Taylor was telling me that she picked up 5 new customers so far this year, and they were all referrals.
Huh. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, referrals are always the best as far as I'm
Uh-huh.
concerned.
You
You
can't
don't
buy
have
that.
you don't have to convince them. They're already there. They've already taken the bait, so to speak, which is a really nice thing. I was just really impressed with the amount of work you were doing for some of the YouTube bloggers and stuff, and the quantities that they were going through was just mind-boggling to me.
It is. Yeah. I took another order in for 5,000 pieces this morning of a t-shirt, 1,100 hoodies. And then we're running 5,200 in the shop right now. Plus, we don't really do contract work,
Right.
because of the way I price it purposely. But we have a couple of customers, one from Seattle called Approach Clothing. I've never heard of them. They found us.
Huh.
But yeah, they're willing to pay. We're doing an $8,000 job right now and it's all supplied with easy one color, two color stuff on it. And they
Well, that's
send it
always
to
nice.
pick it up. We've got one guy that does merch to help other people. Not to help, but that's his business. And he's got several rappers on there. He's got a couple of these investigative reporters that go out and they're all selling merch, a fair amount of it. He's got a comedian out of New York,
Uh,
just ordered 1,000 shirts that say, I need a Guinness and a cigarette quickly. That's all it says, one color. This is our, I think, third round of them.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, who'd have ever thought that somebody could be online and not only do what they do and get paid for it, but put in orders, for thousands of garments and
And
other
we can't
merch.
keep up with, our largest guy, is more of my business than I want him to be right now. And we're working on things to mitigate that. But we were his second vendor and we're number two. But he's got a guy in Clearwater, just bought a 50,000 square foot facility and went to 7 or 8 presses for him.
Wow.
He's over 75% of his business. But that guy probably does 60,000 t-shirts a month, not including the rest of the merch. There's other people on TV like Vice Grip Garage who come to him for their merch.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He built he 25,000 square foot pick and pack, basically all high tech, all gravity fed shelving, pallet shelving, all the way to a 20-foot ceiling. The bottom ones,
Hmm.
there's 3 aisles of it, and he's got 2 conveyor belts that snake in and out of the rows that the shelves create. And you walk along and you can fill your stuff. Anything that needs to go in an envelope goes in a little plastic tote. Anything that needs to be boxed, they pick the box and do it right there. Um, and then when you're done picking your order, you just push it onto the automated one. It sends it down to the other end of the factory. And the conveyor automatically senses the color of the tote versus the color of the box and it splits it so it goes to the right packing station. When you remove something from one of his boxes, they're all on scales. All the shelves are on scales. It automatically deducts the item from your inventory by weight.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's got to be one crazy operation. Amazingly expensive to put together, but wow.
Yeah, he does giveaways. He's a big racer, and he'll get a new truck, soup it up with 1,000 horsepower engine, put a trailer on it, put a quad on the trailer, and offer $50,000. And every garment you buy or every piece of apparel you buy from his website, regardless of what it is, you get 5 entries into the drawing to win that.
Hmm.
I know on one of the ones he did last year, he ran it for 2 weeks. He had 127,000 entries. Orders, excuse me. He got 127,000 orders out of it.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got 4 million followers on YouTube.
I think I was born about 50 years too early.
You have to have personality to go on the air.
I mean,
Leaves me out.
it's some of it is just mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. It's difficult to comprehend uh, how much a YouTuber or someone who's a blogger, how much influence they have and how much merchandise they can sell just for being where they are. And,
Absolutely.
you know, all of us are a little too old for all of that. I mean, Dennis, you're the youngest guy here.
Yeah. And
You
we're
feel like a
about
kid. I'm sure you feel like a kid right now.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
So
Now,
you're,
I'm very curious to see where 2026 goes.
so am I, you know what? I'll let you know what the show was like afterwards. But I would guarantee you probably 60% of the show will have something to do with DTF.
I think in
If you
2026,
eliminate, yeah, if you eliminate the garment people, of things that are on the floor for manufacturing,
right.
uh, there'll be screen print and there'll be embroidery, but I guarantee you there will just be a massive amount of DTF.
There has been the last two shows, the Print United I went to with you, and then the one I went up to in Atlanta last year, same thing. I really think that at the end of 2026, the first half of 2027, there's going to be a reckoning and see who's left making DTF machines. A
You
lot of
know,
people jumped into that market in a hurry.
I kind of look at it the way DTG was. When I did the show in Minneapolis in 2004, when Cornette and Scott Fresner showed their machines for the first time. And as a matter of fact, I worked with Cornette on getting the distributors. I had a friend in Israel who I had worked with, and he said, "Remember, I told you 4 years ago that I was working on something, and that when it's ready, I'll call you." And I said, "Stephen, you think I remember what happened 4 years ago at a trade show? Really?" He said, "Well, okay, so we're ready. I need you to come into Minneapolis a day early and meet with some of the people that I'm working with." I said, "That's fine." So I flew in and we ended up going out to dinner at a steakhouse. The guy who actually funded um, Cornette was the guy who owned Nur, Nur. So Moshe Nur was his name. And he had sold off his business, Nur, which was a graphics manufacturing company. And it was funny because at the dinner, he only spoke Hebrew, but I know he knew how to speak English, but that was okay. Um, in any event, they needed distributors, so I worked that out for them. And so I said, "What's the big deal with your machine?" I said, "I saw the one that Mamaki had done a number of years ago that used discharge ink, and it looked awful. It looked like the garment had been washed 50 times, and yet it hadn't been washed at all." I said, "And if that's the best you can do, you don't really need me. You need to really evaluate your equipment." And they said, "Well, ours can print on black shirts." And I said, "Okay, so now you have my attention." So I
game
said,
changer.
"Do you have a machine here that's going to be able to do that?" "No, we're still finishing it up, but we do have a sample with us." I said, "Okay." So I went to their booth, and it was gray ink on a black shirt, but it was there. And so it was like, okay. And so I said, "So how much are your machines going to sell for?" "Well, we have a show special. The single head is 90,000 and the twin head is 130,000. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "In order to maintain your distributorship, you have to sell 5 machines in the first year." So I put in 3 of their 4 distributors. Scott Fresner at that show was selling his machine for, I think, 12,000. And so I'm thinking, I'll collect my fee for what I do, and that'll be the end of that. Every one of the distributors sold more than 5 machines for the first year, and every one of them sold the twin head machines, not the singles. And it was like, I was blown away. And of course, it was like, "Yeah, we'll have them one that can print black ready in 6 months, and you'll be able to redo your machine so that it can print on black." That was a lie, because none of their old machines were able to be converted over to print on black. But it took about a year, and at that point, they actually did have a machine that printed on black. Their biggest thing is it has an internal pre-treat, and they have a patent on that. Everybody else had to go on the outside pre-treat and then bring their shirts in. Theirs did it in line. Um, and, they survived. Scott, unfortunately, did not. He thought he was dealing with the factory direct. He was dealing with a middleman. And so when his machines got returned, he went to the middleman, and the middleman said, I don't have anything to do with it. Bye bye. And so that's when Scott went bankrupt. Uh, but then you had a ton of other machines come into the market. And inside 3, 4, 5 years, it was down to a handful. You have Brother, you still have Cornette at that time, which is still around, although their pricing has gotten even more insane. Of course, they've come out with so many more machines. I think the least expensive one is about 75,000. But it's that internal pre-treat that keeps selling people. Here's an interesting thing. So there's a company up in Minneapolis, Rob, starts with Dubo. So Rob Dubo was the owner, and he passed away. I think he had 13 Cornette machines. They can't get rid of them. Cornette will not work with anyone who has bought a used machine.
Well, we've had customers that have had Cornettes, went with Epson,
Yep.
with the idea that, they could throw those things away by the time they'd fly a Cornette tech in there for 3 days. It was just cheaper. They looked at them as throwaways. At that time, $20,000. We had guys that were buying 50, 100 machines at a time.
Yeah.
And, they're obviously big players.
Yeah. You had all the big boys all went with Cornette, and then they got rid of them all.
I thought Scott Riley's downfall, you correct me if I'm wrong, you might correct me if I'm wrong right now. His big problem is he thought he could make his own, and that's how he lost his shirt.
Well, he
I
got
knew
me,
about the problem between the supplier, or who we thought was, but then he tried
well,
to make his own. I thought he sunk a lot of money in that and realized it's more complicated as a
I'm going to be
manufacturer.
with him next week. What was interesting is uh, I got invited to Israel to work with Cornette. And so one of the places they took me to was where they were manufacturing their ink.
Hmm.
And it had to be a warehouse that was maybe uh, 30 feet by 50 feet. Okay. And if it cost them more than $5 to make a gallon of ink, I'm not sure what they were spending the money on. So I remember when I came back, I met with Scott and I said, Scott, you're with DuPont and you're paying how much for your ink? Why don't you just make your own? And he said, well, the technician that we're working with works for DuPont. I said, well, hire him away and pay him twice as much, because for what it's going to cost you to make your own ink, you can make that up in no time. He never wanted to do that. So he was paying like, I don't know, $400 or $500 a gallon versus
And
literally,
DuPont screwed him up because they had that few bad batches
yeah.
that hurt Scott. We were a
Well,
distributor of Scott's.
he got, and I'm going to be with him next week, but he got about 300 or 400 machines that were returned to him. And I thought that's what bankrupted him. But I don't know. I'll speak to him next
Yeah.
week. I've never had him clarify what put him down.
That's my understanding was
Okay. Well, and you know what?
manufacturing did it to him.
When I do the next one of these, I will clarify what
Okay.
put him down. But what was interesting though is, certain machines came in 20, 25,000. And right now, there are tons of used ones on the market because nobody can do anything with them. They can't get support. They can't get product. They still clog. Um, and my view is with a lot of the DTF that's out there, those who are buying these little 12-inch wide uh, film machines, they're just gonna fade away. Uh, the quality that they're getting off of those is nothing to write home about. Of course, for the guy who comes in for 6 T-shirts, yeah, it'll work just fine. For somebody who wants 300 shirts, not going to happen. The quality is just miserable. The speed is not there. They can't do anything oversized because the film size is 12 inches wide, which means you can't go too big. And some people really do want big. I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to, you're going to see a ton of them fall apart just the way they did in DTG.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think the DTF will get better, but at a certain point, it's like, how good do you think it could really get? You know, we've had heat transfers available forever, okay? And there was never such a thing as, oh, the heat transfer is going to eliminate the screen printer. Yeah, right. It's not going to. Is DTF going to eliminate the screen printer? No chance. Okay. You know, the amount of screen printing we do in this country is a fair amount. When I was over at Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, the size of the factories and the orders that they were getting blew away every company that I know in the US.
Really? Wow.
Oh, when I was in, the biggest shop in Bangladesh has two buildings that are about 6 or 7 stories high each. And with dozens, you know, I can't imagine how many miles of print tables, but they also had like 40 automatics. They had, you know, 4 or 5 CN top machines. I was talking to the owner of the company, and he had just finished doing something for Zara. It was a 400,000 piece order.
Hmm.
And I said, how long did it take? It took him a month to produce. I said, so you screen printed? He said, no, he used his CN top machines because he could buy his ink from China as opposed to what you have to buy here if you're buying from M&R, for example. So he could buy his ink cheap. So it was a combination of screen print and digital. And he said it cost him 25 cents a shirt to produce versus screen print, which would have cost him more because of the amount of labor he would have had to use. But yeah, he knocked out the 400,000 shirts in 1 month. And I said, so how much production do you do? They do about 325 to 350,000 prints a day.
Hmm.
Man. So, Charlie, when you go to the show, would you do me a favor? Stop
Sure.
by the DCC booth. You know, the
ECC.
automatic. Yeah, DCC.
Oh yeah, that's the one out of India.
The one I've been to. M&R
Yeah,
had it for years.
David Blake is working with them now.
Right.
Yep.
So my understanding, I haven't studied it yet, is basically it's a pretty much of a copycat of the Rock, except
Well,
about 30% less.
okay, so I know I worked with the people from DCC back when I was doing work in India,
Okay.
and they were originally involved with M&R.
For
They
up
still
until last year.
Huh?
They OEM the Copperhead Mini for them.
Exactly. Yep. And I don't know what happened. That's part of why I want to go over to that booth as well to find out why they're on their own and not with M&R anymore.
I have my story. I'm not sure it's true since I have all these stories. My understanding was it was getting too complicated for the M&R sales guys having both lines, especially with DCC being quote unquote 30% less or whatever, you know,
Yeah,
less cost. So
that's
if the
right.
salesman wanted to make an easy sale, a lot of salesmen aren't salesmen, they're order takers. So with 30% less, they can take the order
Yeah,
versus talking about the features and benefits of each of the machines. So we had machines at Lawson years ago that got too complicated. So we took a machine off, you know, this is on graphic printers. We had a
right.
lower end graphic printer and a higher end and they're almost the same machines. The foundations were the same, but it got too complicated. So we took one off just because our own sales staff and the dealers were getting confused. Well, I'll just sell the less expensive one
Okay.
when they didn't understand it
I'm
all.
certainly going to be going over to DCC.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did work with them back in India, going back a ways. And yeah, they were certainly involved with M&R, and I can understand where uh, breaking away and doing their own machine makes sense, only because they can produce it for that much less money. Um, I didn't
I
know if
think,
they, I didn't look at their machine, so I didn't know that it was close to what a Rock is or M&R, but my guess is I'll let you know what I think
yeah,
when
let me
I,
see, because I want an unbiased view. I can't get a totally unbiased view from my brother.
well, of course not. I mean, you know,
And I was going to go to the
oh,
show,
he's
but
going to tell you
my wife is
how
giving me a
he's going
hard
to
time
tell you,
about.
he's going to tell you all the negative things about it.
No, he likes to analyze things. He's pretty good at that stuff.
Okay. Well, I will certainly go over because I definitely want to find out why David Blake is with them because he had been with M&R for a very long time. And all of a sudden he's over at DCC.
Yeah, it'd
Isn't
be
that
interesting to get your
interesting?
perspective.
Huh? I'm sorry, I missed what you said, Dennis.
Oh, so isn't that interesting if he's over working for DCC now? Maybe he sees something, an opportunity to
Yeah,
step in.
it's funny. When we were in Orlando, DCC was there. I never went over to their booth because I was tied up doing other things. And I didn't realize that David Blake had gone over to them because David Blake and I go back. Wow, he hired me back in 1999 to do the FESPA show in Munich with him. And so he and I go back a long ways. Um, and I always considered him as an M&R person for, I don't know, the last 20 years or whatever. He was doing all their overseas stuff, et cetera. Matter of fact, longer than that, because I actually went to his daughter's wedding. And she's been married for quite some time now. But in any event, yeah, I'm just curious to find out what the situation is, what the deal is, and why he's with DCC and not with M&R anymore.
Who do
I
you
mean, he's
think is
the brains of
M-
the operation.
Huh?
After Rich Hoffman, he's kind of the brains of the operation for their equipment, my understanding.
He was the one who was doing all the overseas. When you went to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, China, it didn't really matter. That was all David Blake.
Oh,
And I think he spent more time overseas than he did on U.S. soil.
hmm.
Uh, and yeah, he and Rich Hoffman, obviously went back a long ways also. And so it was kind of surprising because he and Danny Sweem were old friends because he was a Rutland guy also and back in the 90s.
I didn't know that.
Well, that's how I met David was through Rutland. And
I know
also,
Danny was with Rutland.
well, yeah, Danny was the vice president at Rutland, and I actually put in their workshop, oh, long story. But in any event, I became really good friends with Danny. And David Blake was part of that whole package.
Hmm.
So that was back in the 90s. And so, it's a long time. And for the two of them to not be together just kind of seems weird to me, just because they have that much history.
Who
But
would you say is number two in that market in the United States?
who
For
is,
M&R, the screen printing, the automatics selling those. Who do you think is number two?
so, certainly M&R would be number one. I would say that right now, Rock is probably number two. Um, you have MHM, who is still going through some weird stuff. Matter of fact, Jim is on, and Jim does have an MHM and trying to get parts and stuff. Uh, when Meyerhofer passed away, the company was bought out by another group who brought back Florian. I don't know if you knew Flo, but um, they brought back Flo, and he was with them for a while. Uh, didn't work out. They got out. Uh, my understanding is Austria is kind of supporting the company because they don't want it to go down. So there
Hmm.
are new owners now. Uh, I just have to admit, I don't know enough about it. I'd have to speak to Tom Credute to really get a feel, but they were quote unquote, the number three company. Actually, they were number two. And with Rock coming in and pushing as hard as they did, they moved into the number two slot. Ben, how's your automatic selling? I know you're now with also, you have Workhorse as well.
Yeah, well, we do a lot of niche for the smaller guy.
Right.
We even have, for example, one of our large customers probably has 30 plus MNRs, but
Okay.
he has 35 of our one color six station automatics.
Okay.
Tremendous amount of bag printing is done on our machines. We have single head machine. We have, the automatic carousel that are doing, high speed. Uh, so our big automatics, to be honest, no, we're not a major player in the big. A
Right.
lot of niche for the small guys. Do
Okay.
you want to get in there with the semi-automatic? You don't want to spend, 30, 40, 50,000. You can't support it, but you also can't keep printing by yourself with a three-person shop. They buy a one to two color, three color automatic, for 10 to 15, $20,000 at the most for a
Yeah.
three color. So we have a little niche thing there. A Workhorse, they had the bigger machines.
Yes.
We used to make a 10 color automatic, and
Right.
it wasn't our marketplace. We couldn't compete with basically MNR. So we
Right.
just went the other route, which is for the small guy to get him into it, get that squeegee out of their hand. I would say, I wouldn't be surprised if DCC is number three, even over Anatole, because of MNR sales. But since they split, I don't know. I mean, Anatole, I think, is still a,
A
little
player.
bit of a minor player, but I haven't heard much lately.
They have to have the worst reputation in the industry for customer service. I'm
They've
working with a
always been
guy.
that way.
Yeah, I know. I'm working with a guy now who has an Anatole. I did some work with him last summer. He had an exposing unit that they never told him was their experimental one. Uh, he would expose and have to let water drip on the screen to develop it. If he gave it any pressure, it would fall apart. I said, Bruce, you can't do that. He said, I don't know if it's my emulsion. I don't know if it's my screens. I said, it's got to be your exposing unit, but here's how we'll find out. Across the street from his shop is another shop that I work with. I said, let's take some screens over there and have them shot over there. It was halftones. So we went over. They came out perfect. I said, it's your exposing unit. So he called Anatole. So they sent him a new unit. This is after he was struggling with this thing for a year. I said, why didn't you do something sooner? He said, I didn't know that it was, I didn't know there was something wrong. He's now having fights with them over his press. That doesn't seem to hold registration. And they're saying, oh, it's the screens that you're using. It's like, okay, so you're using easy frames and you're using rigid frames. And you're saying that the rigid ones hold, but the easy frames don't? You got to be kidding me, man. I mean, they've
Uh,
got way too much tension to move. I said, it's not the frame. It's got to be the machine. There is nothing else. They are so bad at their customer service that I'm not sure how people are still buying it, other than the fact that they make a small electric machine. And so it's
right.
either go Anatole or you go with Brown. And
Is Brown still making theirs?
they are, you know what?
I haven't heard.
Oh yeah, and they're at every show that you can imagine. The Smith
Well, I
from the
know that. They believe in shows
Smith.
always.
And you know what? I've worked on a couple of the Brown machines, and I got to tell you, they hold registration and they do print, but it's a one-person deal. You sit on a stool and you can load and unload. It goes so slow that if you can get to 20 dozen an hour, you're an amazing printer. That's how
Yeah.
slow it is.
I
But
haven't heard much about
they do
Brown
work.
in about
And
2 years.
they're not cheap machines, man. They're going for like 60, 65, $70,000.
Yeah, they're
But
not inexpensive for
you have
sure.
to be out of your mind to buy one. But hey, they do. They sell. So I do the DAX shows, which is a little show. They sell at DAX shows. They sell to the farmers and I call it my farmers and ranchers shows. They sell to those people. And do they sell well? Yes. And they're the only ones. if you go to PPIA, they're the only one who had an automatic at the show.
Yeah, they've always
Okay.
been good at going to shows. They've always believed in that the
Yep,
entire
they do. They
distance.
are. So the DAC show has expanded. They're doing 6 shows this year. And the only other one that was exhibiting at some of them was Anatole. And um, a couple of them are new places. So they're going to Dayton and they're also going to Tampa, uh, besides Minneapolis, Chicago, uh, Atlantic City, and one other one that I forget now. But it's a show, uh, that has decided to expand. Their attendance is, 2 to 3,000. Um,
They get that many?
they do. Oh yeah, they definitely.
You know,
Uh,
Kansas
uh,
City, they did Chicago and Kansas
Kansas
City.
City
Awesome.
is in February. They've moved all the other shows to warmer times of the year.
Mhm.
And they actually changed the Tampa show because it was going to be in the middle of the summer, which would have been stupid. But nevertheless, um, I do
They're
have their
all
shows.
cheap.
But, is it a good show? It's a really good show for what it is. So they're doing, and Nashville. That was the other one that I forgot. But I'll be in Tampa May 29th and 30th for their show. But they're doing February, April, May, June, and August. But, do they get a turnout? They do. Um, Anatole, I'm curious to see if they were at the Nashville show when I was there last year. And I don't know if they were at any of the other shows. They may have been. But the farmers and ranchers come with cash in hand. They spend 2 days walking around seeing whatever there is, which is now 60% DTF. And they buy. They absolutely buy at that show.
Yeah.
And they don't bat an eye. They'll put the machine in their barn or in their garage, and boom, they're in business.
Yeah.
Charlie, I've got to wrap up here in a few.
Yep,
Larry's about to come back for our
you
LTS
go
training.
for it. Thank you so much for being on. Appreciate it.
It's good talking to you, Ben. Nice meeting you.
Meeting you up.
Yeah, and if I'm coming to Tampa, maybe you'll come down there. You can see what a little show is like. Ben, thanks for being on. Jim,
Beforehand. Take care,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
it's
Well,
recorded,
thank you
so
very
you can
much.
catch up. See you guys on the next one. I'll put a flyer out depending on who I can convince to come on here. Dennis, thanks again.
Okay,
Yes,
give
sir.
my brother a call. Force him to do
I
something.
will. You know what? Tell him that I'll give him a buzz and see if he'll come on.
Well, you'll run into him at he's going to be at Long Beach show, I know. He'll be
I'll
at the
speak.
DCC booth.
I'll speak to him.
I think he will be. I know some other people will be there from Lawson.
Terrific. Well, I'll definitely check him out.
Okay, catch you all later. Thank you.
Have a good one now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, Jim, stay on for a minute.
Will do.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, just running. And
Yeah, well, obviously I saw that since you didn't come on till the end. Did they get to print that Ochoa job yet?
we did that one prep, but we haven't redone it because I have a production that jumped in front of it. I've got a money coming in job.
Oh, well,
So-
that's a good, no, that's a
So
good thing.
I stopped that so because they're gonna have to reburn that red. Because they just need to mess with the actual separation on it. The red looks like it's a little bit weak. So what they're gonna do
they
is
can
just bring it up
separation.
just a little bit.
Yeah, they can take the separations and throw it back into
Yep.
Sep Studio and just make the modifications.
Correct. And I have John and Sarah working directly with each other on that because I was like, I want to see the end product. How the two
Right.
of you get it there is what we're trying to accomplish here. So the two of them are already working on it. They're busting out these jobs that I have to have done by Thursday,
Well, that's great.
and they're kicking butt. Nothing else I can say. So
Okay.
um,
So you're out selling now.
starting to, yes.
Okay. Well, that's a good
Hallelujah.
thing. So for Long Beach on that Thursday night,
Okay.
so we have two situations. The one that goes from with S&S starts at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. I thought what we would do is hit that one, and then from that one, go over to the Aviant one, which I think starts at about 6 or 6:30.
Okay.
And then I have an 8 o'clock dinner with a client of mine from Canada
No
that I
worries.
haven't seen in a number of years. But and I'll be going to La Opera. We'll be going to La Opera on Tuesday night.
Okay. No,
So
it's good. So, like I said, I'm just trying to figure out because, I just saw John's post on Facebook about
yeah,
that shirt, the shirt one from S&S. And I was, is he going to hop over to do the Aviant as well?
I guarantee you he'll have to.
So I was like going, wow, how's he going to swing this one? He's
Well,
double booked.
and that's why I think we do that one at 5 o'clock. Just
Okay.
shoot straight over there, and then because it's right up on Pine Street, on Pine, and then from there we can just shoot straight down to the Avian situation,
Okay.
and
No,
then I
that's
got to
good.
shoot back up on Pine to go to La Opera,
No,
which
you're good. Like I said, it's all good. I'm going to be, like I said, I've got a bunch of pieces I want to look at. John's wants me to look at a couple pieces just so
okay.
I start having out. He is a CTS. He says it makes a difference. I said, well, you help me build this shop up, and we'll look at that. Gas dryer, auto screen coder, and the CTS. Those last
Oh,
two, the
see,
last two.
yeah, damn, I forgot. So Dennis, that was on, has one of the small, just got in one of the small SATI units.
Okay.
And I'll check with him and see what he likes. He's probably had it for a month now.
Okay.
So I'll get a feel for, how he thinks it's responding for him.
All right. So what does your schedule look like this week?
Huh?
What does your
Mine?
schedule look like?
I'm actually pretty open.
Okay. Because I didn't know if you wanted to swing by pre-show.
I'd love to swing by. So yeah.
Okay.
Um,
The only thing we've got is, the nice thing is I can cut out. They got the production handled. So
well, okay, let me take a quick look. Give me a second. The only thing that I have is tomorrow morning at 9:30, I have a Zoom session. And other than that, I'm done. So uh, maybe we'll do lunch tomorrow.
that'll work.
All
That sounds
right.
good.
Love to see how things are moving along in your shop without you sticking
Yeah,
your nose in the way.
nice. And that was actually one of the things. So I found my other Atkins probe,
Okay.
and yesterday we were running it on the dryer, and I
Huh.
was comparing the old Atkins probe versus the new one.
Right.
The new one was made in Mexico. The old one's the old USA one that you got me. Their degrees are off by about 3.5 degrees.
Which is not a factor anyway.
So I go through and I test. I was like, oh, that's cool. Well, somehow I grabbed the wrong cord for the wrong one. The rest of the day, it's not reading correctly. It's like 40 degrees too cool. I didn't
Ah,
realize I swapped it out there, so
you
they're not
swapped it. You
calibrated with each
swapped it
other.
out.
I
Okay.
was like, oh, yeah.
Okay. So
Thankfully, it didn't cost us. It didn't do anything, but it was one of those.
what you have to
I
do
didn't.
is you have to put a little A and B on the donut, and then
Yep.
an A and B on the unit. So this way you keep A to A and B to B.
Do you want me to bring one of the probes to the show?
Um,
Because I got two of them. I can bring that newer one and just so people can see it. Um,
yeah,
because
why not?
definitely make a difference versus
Well,
do you
and
have a
and
laser gun there, a
I'm
heat
going to
gun.
do that the seminar with John, and we're going to be talking about ink, and he'll probably talk about how to profile a dryer. So yeah, we'll be able to make use out of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be nice to have.
All right. I'll make sure I grab the new one, the newer one.
Yeah, well, and if you happen to forget it, not a big deal, but certainly, if you do bring it, we'll make use of it. I'll certainly show it in my workshops.
Yep. So I was thinking
So
about that. And then do you have a heat gun?
I do.
Or
I
the
just have to,
little laser heat?
yep. Yeah, I've got to check mine to see what the temperature range is because I actually use it with my pizza oven.
Okay. If you bring that with, then you might be able to do that, especially with your beginner class, so they
Yeah,
can see the difference when you're trying to get, up to temperature.
and even how to use it correctly.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I'd just try to
Yeah,
help.
as a matter of fact, I'll go out right now and get it because I think I have it outside. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll take care of that. Terrific.
Um, I don't think there was anything else.
All
Uh,
right. Well, did we discuss anything in this session that was worthwhile for you? Not a whole lot, as it turned out, because I was asking Dennis how he got his bloggers. They
uh,
found him. He didn't find them.
okay.
So that took care of that. The numbers that they're doing are insane, but you don't have to know about that.
Wow. Yeah, that's one of the things. Um, do we have any? So on the quote for the um, Oregon state parks,
Okay.
you
I'm
sent?
still waiting. I texted Steve again and said, hey, tell me what you want me to do. And he said, I'm still waiting.
So
Don't
I'm going
do
to
a
quote
thing.
that in 250, 500, and 1,000 count. So you have a breakdown. It'll be the full gambit, 5-color front because that's the shield, and
Right.
1-color back. I'll have that broken down in a quote. Um, Actually, probably 3 quotes. That way you can do the comparisons. There's that
Yeah, if you
much.
send it to me, I'll forward it over to Steve. I put you in touch with him. Um, if and when he goes ahead.
Perfect. No, that's one of the things I'm going to be working on if I can today. But
Okay.
I'll try to do that tonight to start getting things rolling out that way.
Well,
So
all good. All right. I will see you tomorrow then.
sounds great. Have a good one, Charlie. Thank
And
you.
you, Jim. Thanks. Bye.